So recently, I was asked to revisit a sermon from early in my years here in Fresno. It's a sermon about fear, so it ties into what Emily just shared. It's a sermon about forests, so that ties into the outdoors and nature, which I know many of us love. It explores Hinduism and also the god Krishna and the great dance of life that we just sang about. And since 2 weeks ago was one of Hinduism's spring festivals honoring the eternal divine love of the god Krishna, and since tomorrow is the first day of spring, today seemed like the perfect day for us to explore all of this together. We're going to begin with a quote that will make absolutely no sense to anyone at this moment, but hang on, because hopefully by the end of the sermon it will. And that quote is, "It is worth the forest to find the dance." Would you just say that with me? It is worth the forest to find the dance. There were two different places behind my house where I grew up in the suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The first was the meticulously clipped green fairways of the South Hills Country Club. All upper middle class cleanness, it was a wide open expanse of virtually treeless space. Unlike the picture, there's a lot of trees there. Pretend they're not there. There were gentle sloping landscapes stretching out far to the left and far to the right, broken only by pools of pure white sand traps. As a middle-aged kid, I used to sneak out of the house late at night and run out there, slipping in the dew on the short, thick grass. Under the moonlight, I would leap into those sand traps, fall down on my back, and stare up at the expanse of stars reaching ever outward. I was looking for something. I was looking for something to come and dance within me. Perhaps it was the experience of God, perhaps some better sense of myself, perhaps a tomorrow that felt different from that day. I never found anything out there on those nights. It was too safe on that cultivated, wide open green. On that country club grass, nothing could ever surprise me. Perfect and predictable. There was no place for mystery. Not so for the second place behind my house. From the safe-shorn grasses of that country club, I would look to the place where I knew mystery was waiting. The woods were off limits once the sun had set. The woods at night played strange games with a young imagination. Shapes and sounds distorted themselves. Nothing was clear. Nothing was open. Trees grew tight into thickets of thorns and pockets of poison ivy. Winding paths led to small clearings where thin lines of moon barely illuminated gray, empty spaces. I'd heard the stories of what went on in those shadows. Tribes of teenagers sneaking deep into that darkness. I'd heard stories of music and dancing and drinking and bonfires and much, much more. Oh, best of all, I'd heard tell of a mysterious treehouse built high in the branches of an old oak tree. They said a fire burned it down in a great blaze that warmed the chilling night. One thing was clear. The woods were unsafe, unsure, and meant to stay unexplored. One thing was clear. That's where I wanted to go. There are always places in life that are best to avoid, aren't there? There are always moments in life that are best to avoid. There are always decisions, conversations, or conflicts that are best to avoid. There is the unknown that is best to avoid. Nothing good can come from dancing in those shadows, right? And yet, a knowing part of us, within us, sometimes yearns to step into the unknown. Some of us quietly ache to step into that place of mystery, whatever that might be. For others of us, circumstances push us into the unknown, willing or not. Let's face it, life is always pulling us toward the unknown, as if the universe whispered, "Come." Something waits just beyond what you cannot see. Or better yet, come like it or not. Something waits just beyond what you cannot see. Where are the places in your life that call to you? How are you on this day, at this time, being called to step into the unknown? How do we move amidst life's unending process of unfolding? How do we live amidst the brokenness and the wholeness? How do we thrive amidst what is ultimately a mystery? The Hindu myths of India offer guidance and wise counsel in how to move within the changing circles of our lives. The stories told in Hinduism urge us to forsake the notion of a linear, clear-cut, clean, crisp, perfect, and predictable path through life. And I kind of just want to ask, have any of us ever had a linear, clear-cut, clean, crisp, perfect, and predictable path through life? Okay, we're in the right place. Rather, the Hindu myths ground us in reality and invite us into a place of unknowing, a place filled with shadows and uncertainty where everything is ultimately upended and formed anew in a constant pattern of reinvention. The place that, in some of Hinduism's ancient myths, is known as the Forest of Brindavan. The Forest of Brindavan. This might be a good time to remind each other of the quote we used at the start of the sermon that still will make no sense. It is worth the forest to find the dance. Could you say that with me again? It is worth the forest to find the dance. Let's explore that a bit. So, with your imaginations, picture it. The forest of Brindavan grew thick with darkness and danger. Tigers, cobras, bears, and other wild animals lurked in the shadows. No one with any sense or any hope of seeing tomorrow would step into those trees at night. And yet, in the Hindu myths, those trees, those paths were filled with the sound of feet moving swiftly towards a moonlit clearing. Those trees, those paths were filled with human hearts yearning to know the one who would dance wildly with them. For in the Hindu myths of India, the woods, the forest, was not only the place of danger, the source of fear. The forest of Brindavan was the place where you also came to dance with Lord Krishna. Krishna, great god of India. Krishna, great god of Hinduism. Krishna, the lover god. Krishna, the playful. Krishna, the blue skin. Krishna, herald of passion. Krishna, the flute player. Krishna, the sensuous. Krishna, whose whisper stirs the soul. An ancient poet from Bengal wrote of the forest journey to answer the call of Krishna. They wrote, "How shall I tell you of my terror? I could not describe my coming here if I had a million tongues. When I left my room and saw the darkness, I trembled. I could not see the path. There were snakes that writhed round my ankles. I was alone. The night was so deep, the forest so dense and gloomy, and I had far to go. The rain was pouring down. Which path should I take? My feet were muddy and burning where thorns had scratched them." Does that sound like anybody's life sometimes? Yeah. But, the poet says, "I had hope of seeing you, so none of this mattered. And now my terror seems far away. When the sound of your flute, Krishna, reaches my ears, it compels me to leave my home, my friends. It draws me into the depths of shadows towards you." Krishna was the transcendent creator God who came down to earth in one of his 10 avatars, or incarnations. Krishna was born to fully human parents. His evil uncle, King Kamsa, plotted to kill the child, correctly discerning that the baby would grow up to eventually overthrow his corrupt rule. The gods intervened, and the newborn Krishna, who legend tells us could talk and walk at birth, was whisked off to a remote forest village in the province of Braj. Despite several attempts on his life, including a demon in the form of a whirlwind and an older woman with poisonous breast milk, the child Krishna grew quickly, strengthened by the fresh air of the lush countryside and the milk that the cow herds produced. It was clear early on that Krishna was a precocious child. Unlike good little deities, baby Krishna was always getting into trouble. He would constantly crawl up into the kitchen cabinets to raid the butter jar, stuffing himself with its fresh churned richness. Now, in the myths of India, butter is believed to be pure love in solid form. Here was a divine child already filling himself with love, love that he would one day teach others to share. But Krishna embodied more than love. He did a great job in the lust department as well. Other gods were known as champions of dharma, of virtue, righteous duty, godly order. Other gods journeyed through the land fighting evil and restoring the balance of goodness. Not so for Krishna, at least not in his late teens and early 20s. Krishna, young, handsome, buff, like nothing more than to hang out with his buddies and flirt with the gopis, the village girls who tended the cows. For sport, Krishna would seek out the gopis' bathing places and then steal their clothes while they washed in the river, playfully teasing them into revealing their uncovered, naked beauty. On quiet afternoons under the shade of the trees, Krishna would share special favors with Radha, his favorite gopi. But it was in the night that the full lure of Krishna was felt throughout the land. It was in the beauty and the beautiful darkness of night in the forest that all convention was overturned. By the faint light of the moon, Krishna would claim a small clearing. Like a young peacock with his plumage calling into the night, Krishna would take out his flute and in the shadows begin to play. Imagine it. Krishna's flute song, so gentle, so sensual, as it released its rhythm of passion and possibility. Krishna played the music of longing, the heart song that sings within each of us. For some, it was the ache to know better the sacred and the spiritual. For others, it was the ache to know oneself. For others, it was the ache to know community. For still others, it was an ache for something that could be felt, but was still unnameable. For still others, the wise ones who realized that spirit and self and community and the nameless are not separate, it was the ache to know wholeness. Whatever was heard, it was so captivating, the Hindu myths tell us, married women abandoned their husbands' beds to seek it out in the darkness. A song so inviting, the myths tell us, men were enraptured and sought its passionate source. All convention, all need for safety or surety was forgotten as those who heard the call stepped into the place of the unknown. An ancient Bengali poet writes, "At the first note of his flute, down came the lion gate of reverence for elders, down came the door of dharma, of duty. My guarded treasure of modesty was lost. I was thrust to the ground as if by a thunderbolt." What did they find among those trees of Vrindavan? What gift was found in the forest? What did Krishna give those who ventured into the darkness and the unknown? Those who ventured forth found a dance. They found something, someone that could teach them to dance within the changing cycles of life. Whether the body was aged or youthful, whether the body was tense or supple, whether that body could move freely or could only dream of doing so, there in the clearing, Krishna and his devotees began to dance together. They moved their spirits in shared joyful rhythm. They danced the dance known as the Rasa Lila, the flavors of the play of life. The Rasa Lila. As they danced, a realization grew. As they danced, they came to see that there was a connection between the rough forest path they braved and the gentle forest clearing they now savored. As they danced, they realized that within the unknown, as within the forest, there are calm, clear spaces where joy can still be awakened. As they danced, they realized that within the unknown, there are others who are in that same place, and they need not dance into the unknown alone. As they danced, they realized that life, like the dance, is made up of tiny steps, one after another. Just take the first step. The next step will follow, and the next. We'll figure it out as we go. As they danced, they realized that waiting beyond the unknown was something more. As they danced, they realized that waiting within the mystery were hints of meaning to be discovered. As they danced, they learned to trust themselves, to trust each other, to trust the process and the progression of life's unfolding. The spirit of Krishna dances on even today, even in places like here, far from the myths of India. Even today, the dance of Krishna, the Rasa Leela, calls to us, saying, in the words of Daniel O. Rankin, all life is a paradox, a subtle balance of conflicting needs, a fragile alliance of opposing values. The world is a process, a mystery. We are creatures who grow only through enduring the tension and exploring the boundaries of the unknown. We are creatures who grow only when we dance in the empty places. We are creatures who grow only through enduring the tension and exploring the boundaries of the unknown. We are creatures who grow only when we dance in the empty spaces. How is the unknown calling you? What empty space beckons for you to dance? As poet Oriah Mountain Dreamer reminds us, the universe is saying, I have sent you my invitation. The note inscribed on the palm of my hand by the fire of living. Don't jump up and shout, yes, this is what I want, let's do it. Just stand up quietly and dance with me. Take me to the places on the earth that teach you how to dance, the places where you can risk letting the world break your heart. And I will take you to the places where the earth beneath my feet and the stars overhead make my heart whole again and again and again. Dance with me, says the universe, in that infinite pause before the next great inhale of the breath that is breathing us all into being. Don't say yes. Just take my hand and dance with me. Que así sea, bendito sea. May it be so, blessed be. Amen.